Monday the 17th. And yesterday we played through the crime scene chapter. And during the crime scene chapter I made reference to an X-Files episode, and I actually watched that episode. I thought that episode was about Mulder and Scully investigating a crime on the set of a movie. Turns out I was wrong. What actually happens in the episode is that Mulder and Scully investigates a normal spooky crime, and the twists of the episode is that a Hollywood screenwriter is following them along on the investigation, and then in the last 5 minutes of the episode we see them at the premiere of the movie that's based on the crime they investigated, and that's the only set connection there is to the whole murder thing. So it's not about Mulder and Scully investigating a crime on the set of a movie. It's about Mulder and Scully investigating a crime that becomes the set of a movie. I'm sure that the whole inspiration of potentially York investigating a crime on the set of the 1997 flop Batman and Robin, produced and directed by Joel Schumacher. I'm sure that Swery got it from somewhere, I just don't know where yet. Because that whole thing about investigating a crime on the set of a movie, that's a typical Hollywood circle jerk thing. They do that a lot in a lot of shows. And it's usually pretty interesting. I mean, the intention is of course to circle jerk themselves and get big named actress and actresses for the guest part to play the main cast in the X-Files episode. It is real life David Duchovny, who plays Mulder's wife at the time, Tia Leone, who is playing Dana Scully, and she was pretty big at the time. But it's a very neat opportunity for a show to make fun of itself, which the X-Files actually does, and it completely rewrites a character. And this is called Deadly Summer Premonition and not Deadly Summer Files. We're gonna play Deadly Premonition. We're gonna go to the lumbermill, I think, so that's gonna be interesting.
Just as I thought, Zach. This is where Anna was killed.
So, that was actually a fairly long chapter. It's probably the first proper level in the game. We go to the lumbermill, and then we are pretty much immediately transported into the other world.
Zach, they're here.
And I should probably also mention that we go into the lumbermill alone, because everyone except York is technically still a suspect, and York is a bit of a weird stickler for the rules, and he never puts his personal feelings for someone above FBI protocol. So he goes in alone even though...
Is he making fun of us? We should have left him behind and come here by ourselves.
You're right. I've never been so insulted.
These two probably didn't murder anyone. And he's then immediately transported into the other world, as I mentioned. And in here he comes across Anna's, killing place. There is an altar, and there was clearly something set up. And while we are in the lumbermill, we are not only stalked by the shadow demon thingies, but also by the red man killer boy, who's probably maybe the murderer, or maybe he's some evil spirit dude. He stalks us throughout this facility, and he actually menacingly calls us on a phone from different offices and stuff. And we investigate this lumbermill, and we try and make our way through it and pick up some clues to find out what happened to Anna and how she got killed, because Yorkie has this magical investigation ability where he can, from gathering a few clues, put together what actually happened. at some point the killer like directly chases us, and there's this hilariously broken sequence where there are two screens going on at the same time, and one camera is following the killer and one camera is following us. And it's so funny because the game can clearly not handle two screens going on at the same time, so the game is running at like 4 FPS, and it's brilliant. So we start, running from the killer, and there's this annoying waggle mechanic where you have to waggle the stick to run fast, and then there's a bunch of quick time events, and I always fail the last sequence of quick time events like a bunch of times, even though on this version of the game the quick time events are always in the same order. You always need to press the same buttons, and I just never get it right. But we managed to defeat the Raincoat Killer, I believe his name is, and then we put together the mystery. Turns out that Anna was engaged in some weird like sex thing with the dude, so the whole murder thing seems like it started out consensually, and there also seems to be someone who was watching the whole thing. But during the nice bedtime, it took a weird turn, and the man she was with, I'm guessing it's a man, started killing her, which led to the whole sequence of events that we have already explored. We then go outside the lumbermill, and oh yeah, I should mention that we found out that the killer has an upside down peace symbol on his back. Like a scar or a tattoo or something. So when we head outside the lumbermill where George and Emily are waiting, we gracefully ask them to show us their backs. And
This is insane. Your methods are rude, insulting, and out of the question. And Emily is a female officer. Forcing her to show you her back is harassment. I don't care if you are FBI or not. You are out of line.
They do under a little protest.
Are you satisfied now?
Yes. My apologies.
Now you, George.
Yeah, okay. I can't refuse it now, can I?
And they don't have the scar/tattoo on any of their backs, so it's not them. And that convinces York to let them be a part of the investigation again. Or I guess a more intimate part of the investigation again. And then the chapter concludes. Tomorrow I think tomorrow we are gonna go have dinner with George, Emily, and Thomas, because I believe there's a short intermission chapter between this part of the game and the next part of the game, which is the town meeting. So yeah, I think we're gonna do that tomorrow. The mystery is interesting, right? Because there's we know that there was someone at the crime scene. No, we know that there was someone at the find scene, the place where Anna's body was discovered. We know that there was a third party watching. And we know that there is probably also someone watching inside the lumber mill. So are they connected? Who the fuck knows? That's gonna be interesting. I guess we haven't actually talked about Diane, the gallery owner, who is at the moment probably our number one suspect, because she's the only type of lady who would wear stiletto heels out into the national park. I think we are gonna go. Yeah, we're gonna go talk to her later. So but that's gonna be really interesting. But yeah, it's funny. this is a super long chapter, but I don't have a lot to say about it because most of the chapter is just gameplay. There's like some neat level design shit that I guess I could talk about, but it's not that super interesting because it's gonna come up again and again and again. I think the most interesting thing about the level design is that at some point Deadly Premonition wasn't supposed to have combat. And you can clearly see that because some of the chase sequences are still present. And some of the enemy placements are very much still in the spirit of this chase game where you had to avoid them instead of, fighting them. Because they're always coming from one side or the other side. And there are these arenas where you get shut in with the monsters. And some of them you can actually still see the where the button prompt would be to squeeze into like a little gap. And some of them I can tell that you were supposed to like dissolve that battleground's mystery, like pull the hair out of the elevator before the monsters they came to watch you. So that's fun. And that's gonna come up again in pretty much all of the sort of like longer the dungeons. It's gonna come up in all of the dungeons. And you should probably like take note of that because you can it's neat seeing what the game used to be in the final game, because they were in a rush and they didn't have a lot of money. I don't know if you could tell by the cutscenes. So they did the best they could, and they quickly implemented the combat system, and they didn't quite take out the old system, and they of course recycled a lot of the old stuff like the chase sequences. According to Suari, the publisher sort of demanded combat, and for the longest time I actually was like, oh yeah, bad publisher, you are stupid and yada yada yada. But we see the chase sequences running in 8 FPS, and I'm like, maybe the publisher was right to demand that you put in traditional combat that would run at something that would, resembles 30 FPS. So I get it. And the other interesting thing that appears in this level is hands. Square has a thing about hands, like weird dismembered hands that are not actually like blood and flesh hands, but hand-like objects. It's gonna come up in his future game, future game from this D4, where there is a presence of mannequins in that. And in this game, it comes up in the form of door handles that are shaped like hands and weird demon trees that have hands on them instead of branches. I can't remember if and it comes up in Deadly Premonition 2, where York's hand is also a demon gun. So he has a thing about hands, and that's interesting, and I believe it starts here, his weird fascination with hands.
George, can we arrange to have the townfolk gather in one place? There are some things I want to address with the townfolk.
Very well.
But that's pretty much it. It's a really long chapter, but there's not a whole lot to talk about, because the actual story meat of this chapter is about 5 minutes. But it's still very good and still very enjoyable, and I love exploring the game like this. I notice so much stuff by approaching it like this. And I'm looking forward to approaching it more tomorrow. I'll see you.